Welcome back everyone! Today I'm making a quick sew-along suggested by fellow costumer Gwen from Gwen's Shenanigans. I'm making this free-to-download grass pattern that looks more like a Cottagecore pilgrim's collar. So if you want to join, you could download your own copy and sew along with us. For the color, I used this thicker linen fabric that I got from my grandma, who actually got it from the textile factory she used to work in. Of course, as with all my projects, this too needed to include some embroidery. I found these cool embroidery flowers as a base and digitized two of them, one for each color. Crewel embroidery is a freehand wool embroidery traditionally done on a linen twill that dates way back, with the earliest example being the Bayeux tapestry from the 11th century. It was very popular in the 17th century Britain, with its traditional motifs still being referred to as Jacobean embroidery. Once the embroidery was done, I had to cut out the color pattern carefully. To better see how my flower will sit, I traced the pattern onto tracing paper. That way I could see through it and align the flower however I wanted it to sit. Then I cut out the half color and repeated the process of digitizing, embroidering and cutting for the other half. Side note, you are supposed to cut the color as one piece. I only did it in two because the embroidery would have been really hard to precisely line up otherwise. Once I had both halves ready, I sewed them together, right sides facing. Attaching the lace was a bit trickier than I first thought, as I didn't want to ruffle it, but I still had to go around the corner somehow. So what I did was that I made 3 tiny plates at the corner and basted them together before pinning the whole thing onto the fabric, right sides facing. I pasted the lace on by hand on the corners and by machine on the straight bits. For the lining, I thought it would be fun to use a contrasting fabric, so I used this brown cotton and cut the pattern on the fold. Then, I laid it on the fashioned fabric right sides facing together and pinned it together. As the corners were pretty stuffed with lace, I opted to sew those parts together by hand and only using the machine on the long runs. I clipped the corners and turned the whole thing inside out through the top edge that wasn't sewn together and pressed it flat. For the neckband, I used the same stiff linen, cut out 2 bands and sewn them together, leaving only the lower edge open. Clipped the corners, turned them inside out and pressed it flat again. Then I marked the middle of the band and matched it to the center back seam of the collar. From there I pinned the sides on alternatingly, right sides facing, and sewed it on. Then I ironed the seam so it would lay upwards, so when I fell down the inner edge of the neckband, it would cover the raw edges. The last step was to make the buttonhole and attach this pretty flowery button from my grandma's collection. color is basically done, but the fact that it's so unsymmetrical, even if that's by design, because I wanted it to be a little more whimsical by having two different flowers on it, it just really bothers me. Because there's a really big, like, unembroidered corner left on the right hand side flower, so I will do something with it. At the end, I decided to add an extra leaf to it by taking the lowermost leaf of the other flower and mirroring it. I tried to make it as a sort of applique by embroidering it on stabilizer fabric that I intended to tear away. But that didn't really work, so I just cut around the leaf and sewed it on with the same yellow embroidery thread as the leaf's edges, blending it in with the color by sort of embroidering it onto it. It's not the most elegant solution, I admit, but my sense of symmetry is at least restored.